All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict show. So good to be with you guys. Um, Today, we're going to be talking about the trip of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which concluded today. As a matter of fact, he's back into New Delhi. But before I launch into that, let me mention two things about subscription. If you are new to our channel here, please subscribe if you have not done so. And also for our viewers or for anybody, make sure to check out our masterclass. To check it out, you need to go to our website, geopoliticsinconflicts.com. And I will post the link for you. So because I saw some comments from some of you that they couldn't sign up for it. I didn't know why, but I checked. The link is working. The date has changed to about the 19th or the 20th of May. So just check it out, and I will make sure I post the link for you. As to the question of last time regarding the Iran-China and how that's going to sort of impact U.S. global hegemony, majority answered yes, and I kind of concur with that. There were some that said they didn't know enough about Iran for them to sort of answer. It makes perfect sense, but majority, and it's exactly where I expected it, because it's going to go that direction. So that's and the reason for, guys, as I said last time, just to put these questions for us to talk about. So here's the thing. The topic today, make sure you keep in mind there's three key points I'm going to talk about. Then I'll detail for you what it all means. So keep in mind India-Russia ties. Okay. Keep in mind also how India snubbed both the US and the UK. And in the case of the UK, there's now some conversations going on as to how much money UK stole from India. This is over the last 2 centuries or so. Some calculations have reached about $45 trillion. That's how much Britain took away from India. So maybe they need to give the money back. And the third thing that you need to keep in mind has to do with India's new army chief, General Manoj Pandey, who issued a statement warning China against changing the status quo at LAC. And I'll talk about this one towards the end before I provide a conclusion and questions of the day. So here's the thing. And by the way, guys, I do read all your comments. I answer to the best of my ability. I'll admit it. I do not answer some stupid comments that makes no sense whatsoever. It shows me just how small-minded some, and it's not worth my time and energy. So to me, I look at it, you can disagree with me, and I respect your opinion, and I welcome that, but at least make sense of your argument. But there are some, and you know which ones I'm talking about, so it's not even worth it. Because to me, the reason why I answer most of your comments is out of respect for you. Yes, it takes me a lot of time, but it's worth it, because that's how much I respect you. All of us here at Geopolitics in Conflict team, that's how we view you guys, and it's worth it. But for some, what am I to do? Forgive. That's the best thing you can always do. Anyway, let's jump to our topic here. And by the way, one of our viewers, Stefan Chan, and I'm going to mention it here, you asked the question about, can I cover a Prime Minister Narendra Modi trip to Europe? I didn't answer that one yet, and I remember you posted the question on the 2nd, I think, or the 3rd or something like that. I didn't want to answer for that because I wanted to wait till the trip is concluded. And the reason for that, just in case there is some major development towards the end. That is why I didn't want to do it at the beginning, and I waited till today. Well, as a matter of fact, today concludes the 3-nation tour in Europe that Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which just landed, as a matter of fact, at Indira Gandhi International Airport today at about noon, which is about 4 hours from my time here. And the trips, of course, started with Berlin first, Copenhagen, and Paris. And I'm going to go in that order, providing synopsis on each one. then provide an analysis about a brief one, that is. So, well, basically the trip to those capitals, especially to Berlin and Paris, has gained global sort of attention. And this is apart from, the business meetings and all that stuff that the prime minister conducted with the German, the Danish, and the French leadership. So Narendra Modi's trip to Europe, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, but reaffirms India's diplomatic weight that is now gaining despite what's going on in Ukraine. And we all know why. Because India, like China, decided to maintain its neutrality. And that is one of the reasons why the West, especially the United States, I'm sure you guys noticed, and I remember I talked about it about 4 weeks ago when there were a lot of trips from Western representatives to India. It was like a diplomatic week of visits from some capitals, from some representatives from the West to India. So that is the reason why they're trying to see which direction India is going to be leaning towards. So I'm going to start with the visit to Germany. So we'll go with that first. So, well, usually upon Narendra Modi's arrival to Germany, he was honored by the State Guard. There's the State Guard of Honor at the forecourt of the Federal Chancellery. That's usually a protocol that is usually held up to highlight the importance of the guest. So it's a diplomatic protocol. So basically what Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Modi and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, they kind of together co-chairs the 6th Indian-German intergovernmental consultations. So what does it all mean in a simple language? It basically has to do with business. That is what I found very interesting. And I read the transcript for all the 3 locations. The conversations regarding Ukraine was kind of put aside, even though the conversation regarding Ukraine was a major discussion in every stop of the Prime Minister's trip. But he didn't hear much about it, so it wasn't disclosed much about it. So the one in Germany basically had to do with the major announcements from Germany, which was about 10 billion euros that the German will disperse by 2030 to support green projects in India. I personally put in a big question mark. Why is that? And for a simple reason. It's because I take an example of India's usage of electricity. Where does India get most of its electricity? From coal. And we all know the connection between that when it comes down to climate change and greens and all that stuff. So I found it very unusual that Germany will allocate the 10 billion euros towards this end rather than something else. So maybe they came to an agreement of sorts, maybe whatever that might be. But I don't find it ironic that they did that one. So, however, there were other agreements, or not agreements, I'll take this word back, what we call MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding. There were about 7 of them signed between the 2 countries. And that tells me right there the idea of how much Germany is eyeing now the market in India. Now, the question that you need to ask, is this. Could this be a prelude to what lies ahead as far as the shift of the market from the west to the east? Personally, I would say yes. That's where I see it going. So, like I said last time, with over 1.3 billion, 1.4 billion consumers, you cannot ignore India's market. Yes, India's economy is not the like of China, is not the like of Germany, but also it's a big market with some upgrades in infrastructure. Yes, India has a lot of work to do. Let's not minimize that. There is a lot of work India has to do. India has to work on the poverty, okay, the infrastructure. There's a lot, but there's smart people in India, so they can work something out as far as figuring out how to move forward. And I think, personally, the dynamics that's taking place right now on the global stage provides India with the historical opportunity to do so. That's up to them how they want to proceed moving forward. So this is mainly the conversation that took place in Germany. So as far as the next leg of the trip of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi was to Copenhagen. Why Copenhagen? Because Narendra Modi attended the second India Nordic Summit in Copenhagen. So, and this one, the Nordic Summit included other prime ministers of Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Sweden, and Norway. So, and what's interesting about prior to the beginning of this summit, Narendra Modi conducted or held bilateral summit meeting with the leader of Norway, Sweden, Iceland, and Finland. And the main conversation that focused there, guess on what was? Military ties. So the question becomes, why will India focus mainly on the military ties with the Nordic states, knowing now, which we just mentioned yesterday, about Sweden and Finland regarding the possibility of joining NATO? There were some comments from some that, well, you guys do not know what you're talking about. I guess when a person comment like that, they don't like what amounts to. And what you do again, you forgive their ignorance. That's basically what it is. So, excuse me. But this is basically the conversation about the Nordic states. You know, if you noticed that it was no meeting with the Prime Minister of Denmark, because I don't know why. I don't have an answer for that. But what's interesting about Denmark is that the Queen herself of Denmark, Margaret II, sort of welcomed the Prime Minister at the historical Amaliaborg Palace in Copenhagen. I remember a couple of years ago, way back, when I was in Copenhagen and I went there, I saw that palace from outside, of course. I was not inside. It's an incredible place. And then Denmark was incredible. I truly enjoyed my time there before I went up to Stockholm and to Helsinki after that. Scandinavians have always been very, very unique, very peaceful, calm, and so forth. And this is why I am so perplexed by what I heard regarding the Sweden and Finland all of a sudden, officially. Remember, there were some ties with NATO and all that stuff, but nothing was official. So. But anyway, that's so the interesting thing about the Queen providing time and meeting with the Prime Minister, it's a big deal. It's a big deal, to the point that she held a private dinner for the Prime Minister. So I won't take this lightly, diplomatically speaking. And remember, always when it comes down to global affairs, you know, is the optics. So this one on a global stage suggests a lot. The question that becomes also is whether India is going to play its cards right. And that's something they're going to have to figure out. And the last stop was to Paris. And that concludes the trip at the LAZ presidential palace there. And it is, to me, it's more significant than anything for more than one reason. You know, here is the first one. The Prime Minister Modi became the first international leader to have met Emmanuel Macron since the latter's re-election to the French presidency, because he just won the re-election. So that means the relations between France and India certainly received a boost after both sides held discussions in some bilateral significance, ranging from defense, nuclear cooperation, to space, as well as other regional and global security. So let me say thank you to Stephen Rosiak. Thank you very much, Stephen, for your super sticker. Truly appreciate it. So, but here's the thing about France that you guys need to know. Of course, you're all familiar with what took place regarding the submarines in Australia between France, in which the United States went behind France's back and cut a deal with Australia. Australia, of course, didn't have the guts to say no, because they couldn't honor their word to the French, who was supposed to build the diesel submarines, whatever. So, I'm not judging Australia here or the US, whatever. I'm just providing the facts. So, well, what's interesting about the talks that took place yesterday between Emmanuel Macron and Prime Minister Narendra Modi focused on the submarines, believe it or not. So, because France has some know-how when it comes down to nuclear technology, especially nuclear submarines, and they're gonna be sharing that knowledge or technology with India. So, which means what? They're gonna cut a deal by having some contracts with India. France is also looking at not only making up what they have lost in Australia, but also, once again, I think about it in terms of what they are seeing moving forward, is that the market is going to shift from the west to the east. India is going to play a role into that. So it's a fact. It's just a matter of when. That's the way I see it. So that was one of the important things about the France. So the conversation between Prime Minister Modi and Emmanuel Macron. So, and both leaders sort of, I saw the visits, of course, the hugs and all that stuff. That's usually an indication. Whether it's sincere or not, that's beside the point. Remember, it's the optics, But both leaders agreed on a very, very ambitious agenda for the subsequent phase of the India-France strategic partnership. That is a major one. And here's the thing. Even the foreign minister, Vinay Quatra, hinted at talks on a comprehensive defense partnership between India and France, because France has some, production of weapons and so forth. Of course, we all know. That's why I said at the beginning, keep in mind, India-Russia relations. Because who's providing India with weapons? Mainly is Russia. So how that's going to work out with France, it's remained to be seen. So the foreign minister, Vinay Quatra, stated that this partnership between France and India, aimed at bolstering business and trade ties in line with the, and I put this in quote, Make in India initiative, end of quote. So that is very interesting, because the market, the Indian market, once again, you can't ignore it. Yes, we are not comparing it to the Chinese market, because the production level is far more ahead in China than it is in India. But at the same time, with the right strategies, with the right infrastructure, India could move up quickly. They just need to figure that out, and only they can do that. So here's the thing. While the situation in Ukraine was very, very much part of the discussion in every capital visited by the Indian Prime Minister, as I said earlier, like China, India decided to maintain its neutrality. So it's because they are not going to be swayed by the West. They already, as I said, snubbed the US. Remember when the US Secretary of State slammed India about its human rights abuses and also. And the foreign minister of India hit back at him by saying, okay, if you are to do this, why don't you go take care of your own issues at home with the human rights abuses you have at home? I was shocked, surprised, because that to me, an indication that they're not going to take it anymore. So, because the global dynamics are changing, that's just part of it. Panda, thank you so much for your super sticker. Much appreciated. So let me provide you guys a brief analysis here as to what it all means. So what it all means, basically, it's perhaps the most significant. What is most significant about this trip is the growing importance that has been accorded to India on the global stage. It's a fact, and the growing desire for many countries in Europe that are going through hard economic times so they can engage with India as an alternative. So this is what I see why the West, just the last trip about 2 weeks ago or so of the Prime Minister of Boris Johnson of the UK. It wasn't successful. Yes, he did meet with the Prime Minister of India. So what? India's looking at it. India's playing both sides. And there is nothing wrong with that. They have to look after their own interest. There's nothing wrong with it. So most countries do that. And the idea to put this within the framework of the global setting is that the world order, which includes a reliance on the US dollar and the euro as principal reserve currencies, is changing. This is once again why the US and the West were concerned about India accepting to do trade with Russia in rupees and ruble, because that will sidestep the SWIFT altogether. I mean, for us here in the United States, I don't know if you guys heard it or not, the Federal Reserve just increased interest rate. Usually the purpose of that, which was very significant, nobody expected that. That's usually how they fight inflation, so-called. Even though the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, sort of a couple months ago said, and I quote here, the inflation is transitory, which was a lie. If you happen to live in the US, you will notice that it's a lie. Why? Because prices of houses, commodities, items, food, energy, everything went up. I never expected to see, when I will go to the grocery store, supermarkets, whatever, to see half of the shelves are empty. Never expected to see it. And of course, we don't hear much about it from our own government, because the inflation is not 6%. Let's face it, it's double digit. It's no different than what's taking place right now in Germany with about 14%. As a matter of fact, I just read this morning that now there are demonstrations in Germany. Of course, for a different reason, has to do with the weapons that Germany's going to send to Ukraine, whatever. But I think it's going to transition into the economy because, excuse me, the Germans are starting to feel the economic pinch of what's going on. Their prices are going up. So that is one of the reasons why they are doing what they are doing. So just to follow up on what I was saying earlier. So the idea that the US dollar and the euro as a principal reserves currency is changing. And why? Because there is the possibility of the return to gold standard. It's a real possibility, at least in Russia, because that's how they're working out. And the ruble, I noticed, and I checked the market this morning, the ruble is moving up a little bit. So could this explain why the West took an interest in India? Because of the market, but also the transactions going to be conducted in their own currencies, the ruble and the rupees. Same thing with China and Russia. Same thing with Pakistan and Russia and China. Same thing with the announcements of Saudi Arabia that the possibility of accepting the payments from China for the energy delivery for oil and all that in the Chinese currency. All this is an indication of what lies ahead. And mind you that which country I forgot, I wish I can remember, in Central Africa that is now using Bitcoin altogether. So, and why is that important? Just FYI, because the Belt and Road Initiative is major in Africa. So which means what? You look at it like a chain. Everything is connected to another. Most countries in Africa is going to now bypass the dollar, dealing directly with the Chinese currency, or RMB, and that depends. Again, they can make an arrangement how they're going to proceed with that. Let's remember, they are still in the process of building the financial infrastructure. So, and this is why I personally say, as an analyst, that the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, still hold his ground against Western pressure. That's why I didn't, when I said he snubbed the US and UK. And the West coming in a stream to India. That's what it was 3 weeks ago. One after another. Partly some of them, yes, to do trade, but occasionally and sometimes to threaten or hold out a carrot for India. But the thing is that the West has realized the need to shift gears in its dealing with India. That is very, very important. They are realizing that. So that's why to me personally, and again, my personal opinion, the visit of the Prime Minister of England, something is printing. The Prime Minister of England, UK, it wasn't successful. It was not successful. They're trying either to pressure India or sort of use the carrot. But India stands firm. Still going to be neutral when it comes down to the Russian issue. And at the same time, they are moving forward with the trade with Russia. That's just how it's going to work. So let me shift the gears to talk about Ladakh with the announcements of the Indian Army Chief. To put it within the big picture, I do find it very, what's the word? The timing of it is not right. Why all of a sudden? Because the statement by the Army Chief was stated while Narendra Modi was still in Europe. So the timing of it is kind of coincidence. So here's the thing regarding this issue, which, by the way, the tensions regarding the border between India and China goes back to June 15, 2020, when the troops of both armies fired at each other in the Galwan Valley in East Ladakh. That's how it's all started. So basically, the agreement on what they called the lack or line of actual control between India and China. They have signed about 4 agreements on this boundary issue. I think the agreements were signed in, if I'm not mistaken, September 1993, November 1996, April 2005. Then it was on October 2013. So once again, I am surprised. I won't use the term perplexed, but just surprised at the timing of it, because this new army chief is not from he came from the Corps of Engineers, whatever. Didn't follow like the traditions of the Navy or Air Force traditions that's been done. But to look at it as a whole, Indian Army is going through some very, very critical time right now. Of course, there is the challenge of the northern border with China. There is also the standoff with China that has been ongoing for the last 2 years. There is also the issue of Pakistan that India will have to deal with. Even though there has been some ceasefire for almost a year now. Whether that's going to solve itself or not, I don't know. But I do think about one thing as an analyst, and this is what the West, if it chooses to, they could create chaos for India in the part of the country or the borders, especially when it comes down to Pakistan. That's how infiltrations will happen from certain groups. You guys can read between the lines. There are certain things can't mention here, of course, on this platform, but you got my point. So I won't be surprised that might happen. Just give it about 1.5 to 2 years, depending on how things progresses. So yeah, I won't be surprised at all. There's a possibility to that. So this will lead me to, for us, just all of us, to think of 2 key questions. One is that could China and India possibly unite someday if a union amongst an equal can work with the assistance of Russia? And the second question that we ought to consider is that can Russia maintain its independence in its alliance with China on the strength of its military prowess alone? Yeah. And those are 2 basic analytical questions that we ought to ask. The thing that I feel we are missing the most in the West, and maybe in some other parts of the world, is that lacking critical thinking. It's what led us to sort of overlook certain aspects, certain possibilities. And critical thinking is very, very important. We suffer a deficiency of it here in the United States. And I'll say it straightforward, because thinking is an effort, and we don't want to think. Some of us not. I shall not generalize. We want to have everything prepackaged. The way I look at it, it's how the news is provided here. I don't watch the news here in the United States. I don't even have cable because I don't watch that. I don't watch TV, so I don't have time for it. But the way I know it, because I know how the system works, is that the idea that the mainstream media will want to do the information, do the analysis, and provide you the conclusion. So all they want you to do is sit there and stare at what I call the idiot box, because they don't want you to think, because once you start to think, you become a threat to the government. Because thinking stimulates critical thinking, that is. You start to think outside the box. So just to tie it back to those 2 questions, in terms of those are logical questions that we ought to ask within the context of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's trip to Europe, also within the India-Russia relations, and also within the new army chief in India's statements regarding the maintenance of the status quo of Ladakh. So this is what I see where I see it going. So let me provide you guys my conclusion personally. Then I'll ask you the 2 questions, and I'm going to wrap it up here. So the way I see it is that if the last century, the 20th century that is, was the famously proclaimed, and rightly so, that it was the American century, because we dominated the global order for the last 70 years or so. We did. Excuse me. The 21st century, however, is what most analysts, the one who think pragmatically, logically, and with some critical thinking, is the Asian century, with India and China as its main players. I do remember last time I said there are three countries that matter on a global stage: Russia, China, and the US. Yeah. But now you see in the growing role of India on the global stage. And this trip to Europe is a case in point, because where did the prime minister went? He went to Germany and France. Who is France and Germany? The two main pillars of the EU, the strongest economies in the EU. The prime minister didn't go to England. Yes, UK is not a part of the EU anymore. The prime minister didn't go to Italy. It didn't go to Spain. Didn't go to Portugal, whatever. So, because they don't matter. UK doesn't matter anymore. What matters is Germany and France. And that's right there. It tells you where things are. So yeah, I will feel comfortable saying that the 21st century, the Asian 21st century, will include India, of course. Because here's the thing. The previous era, it was shaped by the hierarchy of the victors of the World War II. Well, who are they? Of course, the United States and the Soviet Union at that time that defeats the Germans. So they managed the global order, except that between the United States and Soviet Union, they managed the global order as competing superpowers. You know, we're gonna sort of, to a lesser extent, consider UK, France, and even China at that time. You know, to me, they didn't have an impact. They didn't have impact on the global affairs at the time, because what mattered was the United States and the Soviet Union. So, in the new global order, that is the way I see it personally, and yes, of course, you can disagree with me, and I respect your opinion. And again, that's just how I think, and I'll say it out loud. Excuse me. The way I see it, okay, is that in the new world order, or the global order, that is, both the United States and China fully understand that New Delhi, India, will play the role of the pivotal. It's gonna be playing a pivotal role. That's like almost the third angle, if you will, in the emerging new global order. And what it's gonna be is that the idea of India almost gonna be in the middle, creating some sort of a balance between US and China. And in that, we could say it's what will be inevitably the emergence of the new triangle of the global power. Yes, as I always say, the three main, Russia, US, and China, that's from a different perspective. From this one is the idea of that US, China, and India. And all you have to think about is the idea of the size of the Indian market. Otherwise, why will the Europeans open their arms to Narendra Modi with, some sort of the protocol? Yes, he's a head of a country and so forth, the representative of India and so forth, but usually you don't do this for an average. India didn't do that for when Boris Johnson went to New Delhi. No. India didn't do that for, what's her name, the foreign secretary Truss of England. She didn't even meet with Narendra Modi. So that just gives you the value of how important these guys are. So this is where I see it here moving forward as far as the new triangle for the global balance of power. And that, of course, is going to become the idea of how India is going to play, as I said earlier, its strategic cards regarding in Southeast Asia, regarding the Euro-Asia, regarding what's going on right now with the conflict in Ukraine, and also whether its tensions with China can be worked out in a peaceful way. I hope they do. I really hope they do. But I don't see that. I don't see that because that's a weak point, especially for the West, to trigger any kind of tensions if it wants to. It depends how India and China is going to play their cards. So let me ask you guys the two questions of today, and I'm going to wrap it up. So here are the questions. First one, are India and China, excuse me, are India and China slowly but surely pulling away at the balance of power from Europe and the United States? The second question, can India play a vital role in the new global order? And if so, how? And these are just some opinions from you, whatever. I'll be happy to read your answers to this one. So let me repeat the two questions. Are India and China slowly but surely pulling away at the balance of power from Europe and the US? And the second question, can India play a vital role in the new global order? And if so, how do you think it can do that? I hope you find this information very useful, guys. And I look forward to seeing you next time. As always, stay informed. Till next time. Bye-bye.